Alright, hello, welcome back. This is going to be just basically a straight up review. Um, it's not going to be a review of like brand new or modern books, but of certain books that just may have passed you by that you may never have heard of. Just, obscure things books, comic books, movies, whatever. Just want to do a straight up review. First off, yeah, move to the side. Awesome Tinkerbell picture behind me. Yeah, because who doesn't love Tinkerbell? Let's be fair. So, what I'm going to review is a comic book called Shazam. Now, there's a movie coming out of the same title, and I'm gonna they changed the character within the last 10 years. He's very different than originally was. His name is not, nor has it ever been Shazam. That's a word used in the comic book. His name's actually Captain Marvel, and he was owned by a comic book company. I forget which one. It wasn't He wasn't initially owned by DC. Another comic company created him and used him for many years, and DC got the rights somehow. You can look that up. It's hugely complex. But yeah, he was Captain Marvel. There was some litigation at one point between Marvel Comics Captain Marvel and DC Comics Captain Marvel. And presumably they changed the name just simply to avoid confusion. I honestly don't know why otherwise they would do it. Shazam just doesn't work with the character. And another thing they've changed in the last few years, so how it is that it's Billy Batson is a 9-year-old kid, and in the current comics, he basically changes into Shazam or Captain Marvel, and he still has the intelligence of, Billy Batson. He's basically the same person, just in a human adult form. The original comic, they're two separate people. Billy Batson is kind of becomes the avatar of Captain Marvel, and he's this really immortal, powerful entity that expresses it through there. So what we're going to be looking at is a really good comic that was done about 10 years ago for Shazam. Um, and honestly speaking, with the upcoming movie, if they don't base it on this comic, you know, I don't think it's worth seeing. This is actually one of the best comics I've ever read, and we'll get into why. But here we are. This is the Monster Society of Evil. It's written by Jeff Smith. For those of you who actually recognize the name, Jeff Smith is most famous for having done the epic high fantasy meets Three Stooges comic book Bone, which is a really good comic for all ages. This, I think, I would highly recommend Bone. This one also rates as one of my favorite comics. It's really surprisingly well done. So what he did, it's based upon the original storyline of Monster Society of Evil from, I want to say the 1940s. I'd have to look it up. I feel bad. Excuse me. I have to look it up. Anyway. So it's a really good storyline, but what he did was he took all the elements that a lot of people loved of the original Shazam series, the comic book series, and also include elements that were in the TV series from a few years back, from late 1970s, I believe, is when it was on, and combined all those little elements together, and then combined it with kind of what you see in modern comics nowadays, the harder, grittier stuff. But he somehow does that without going overboard, and then he very much says it in a post 9/11 world where it works really well that way. So we'll take a quick look at some of the awesome artwork in it. So yeah, if you've seen Bone, you'll recognize Jeff Smith's artwork in it, with the characters. So just the basics of the storyline. You have young Billy Batson living on the streets, trying to survive for his living, doing all that fun stuff, and he's then one day sees someone who resembles his father, follows him into a disused subway station, gets on a subway, and finds himself at the end of time, basically. this bizarre place at the end of time where a wizard basically gives him the Shazam name, tells you, basically goes back to the original, how the word Shazam came from. I won't spoil it for anyone. And, says, this is your magic word, say it. And he says it, and he becomes Captain Marvel, and adventure continues from there. This also introduces the character of Mary Marvel, but he does something that I don't think's ever been done before or since. The original Mary Marvel she was a teenager with some but not all of Captain Marvel's abilities, or different abilities, I should say. And she was originally, and I believe her appearances in the new one have been the same way. He did her as essentially a little girl the same age as Billy Batson, or I think a couple of years younger than he is. I think she's 5 or 6 and Billy Batson's 9 or 10. And as that kind of, and she has that kind of attitude of 5 or 6-year-olds that suddenly has all this awesome little power. Can kind of see it. So this is a highly recommended comic book. Before I leave it and go to it, I will show you. So at the end of this particular book, we essentially have a making of section. If I can get to one of the cooler looking images where he, this one will work. He kind of shows you the images from the original comic that it was based on, and kind of these visuals, these suspenseful little visuals that he used, and how really similar they are to what he did in this comic, to kind of show you all that, to kind of go over the journal of how he did and what he did do. It is, I would highly recommend this one. So comic books are expensive. Let me check the price. This one's $30. It's a hardcover. It's $30. But also, for those of you who are observant enough, this is not actually my comic book either. This comes from my local library, and I'm going to recommend this to everybody. Before you buy a comic, especially, $20, $30, $50 comic, go to your library. Your library may or may not have it. If it doesn't have it, go to interlibrary loan, and you can get basically just about anything. You'd be amazed. The only things I've had trouble getting are old British published storylines. I'm a fan of Doctor Who, and I have a hard time getting a lot of the old Virgin novels. But other than that, you can get just about anything published in the United States. You can probably get through interlibrary loan. So highly recommend this one. Check it out, read it, see what you think. Let me know what you think. Personally, I don't like what they've done with the character nowadays. It's not just change the name of the character to Shazam. Is that kind of Billy Batson comes off as kind of a little jerk of a 10-year-old. He doesn't come off as nearly as good as he did in previous comics, at least to me. And I haven't read very many of them. It just, what I've read hasn't worked. This is superb. They make a movie, it has to be based on this. Just saying, it's a really good, really suspenseful storyline. Yeah, suspenseful in the comic book kind of way, but it's also it's a fun, interesting storyline. Suspenseful a little bit, and dealing with kind of modern, post 9/11 type storyline, but with Shazam. Anyway, that's all for that. Like and subscribe if you liked it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.